Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve with myself, Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And I'm just checking to see if we are live. For some reason, we're not live on X again. I don't know what's going on with that. I'll double check that. But it looks like we're live everywhere else except for the page still. Let me share out a link to the group real quick. Not sure why or X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, being weird, but I've had some problems on that platform for a couple of days now, so not sure what's going on.
I still call it Twitter, even though it's technically X.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me get the YouTube link real quick and share it from the page to the groups. And then we should be ready to rock and roll. So let me... How's it going today while I'm doing this, Alex?
Oh, it's been good. It's been a little bit of a busy-ish day at work, and I'm actually sitting here talking to somebody trying to figure out we're going to go see Deadpool and Wolverine on Saturday. And they're like, you know, do we want IMAX or standard? And I'm sitting here trying to figure out, you know, we got to go ahead and get tickets. I'm sure that movie is going to be packed. I'm sure those tickets are going to sell out. So we'll probably have to get whatever we can get. But I'm just sitting here trying to figure that out. And yeah, that's basically what I've been up to this right before we got onto the podcast. So
nice.
Nothing too exciting or new since we talked yesterday, you know.
Yeah, I got my tickets for Thursday evening, and I had the option. So our theater here locally, which was like right down the street from me, has the option of 3D with XD or just XD. And since I have the glasses and I can't see as well without them anymore, 3D is kind of hard for me because they don't fit over
I've
my
always
glasses.
wondered that.
Yeah,
like that. I feel like they should make like just something that clips onto people's glasses or something that's 3D, you know?
And I think someone told me they do make some 3Ds, like glasses that go over glasses. I haven't seen them, but it'd be nice if I could get that going, because I'd love that. So instead, I'm just going to see an XD. I'm going by myself, going to check it out, and then my wife probably go, and possibly my son will see it, but we'll see. You never know.
I don't like 3D movies for some reason, and like I don't know why. I think it like bothers me or something to do with my eyes. But one of the last ones I think I went to go see was Age of Ultron, and it was the scene where like Black Widow goes to kick somebody and she like comes right out of the screen, and I like looked down at my phone and looked up and I just saw what looked like a foot coming to hit me in the face, and I almost fell out of my chair because I was like, oh. Like I got so caught off guard. So they look good. They just, I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the 3D. So
yeah, it's sometimes it's good. Like I think I saw the Marvels. You know, I on accident got 3 tickets for the Marvels. We all went, and the kids enjoyed it, and I thought it was some of that stuff was pretty cool. But it was still hard for me to watch. I had to watch it again without it just because to make sure I didn't miss anything.
I always get like motion sick with like all the VR stuff and all that kind of stuff. Like I was playing a flight simulator one time and I got really like motion sick. So like I seem so ridiculous, but I'm not really a big fan of like 3D and like VR stuff and everything. So ever since then, I've always been kind of anti that. But I love IMAX though. So
yeah, I might go see it. We have like one of those huge screens here, like one of the biggest screens in the region at Union Station here.
Ooh, that's
so
nice.
Yeah. If they end up playing it on there, I'll probably go see it there. But yeah, so we are live today. We did the Deadpool review yesterday, which probably will be out tomorrow or sometime before the actual release date. We are here today to talk The Boys season 3 finale. And all I have to say is, man, Huey been put through the ringer. It seems like he's like the constant punching bag for this show. From the beginning with the whole thing with his girlfriend and A-Train, you know, just things over the seasons with him. You know, his this season was pretty bad, you know, with his dad, and then the whole thing at Tech Knight's mansion. Then we find out that basically The shapeshifter has taken over for Starlight. You know, and it seems like he figured it out, but you know, after it was kind of already too late. So, and then you know, the whole thing with dynamic between him and Starlight seemed kind of shaky at first, but it seems like you know, once he gets fully tested for everything known to man, that they're going to be okay in the end. But
That's
then at the end of the episode, you know, she finally figures out her Superman, you know, flying. And when the whole thing goes down, he gets taken by the new regime, and she's off flying off somewhere. So
That's what cracked me up about this episode was he was like, you know, asked by her, why didn't you recognize it was me? And it's like, well, you know, like we had kind of hypothesized before, it seems like the shapeshifter, when you were touched, also took your memories and everything like that, and they remembered stuff. And Huey didn't really recognize that it was somebody else until they used the same phrase that they had used in that apartment when they first found the shapeshifter. And then that was kind of like the red flag. But then like later on in the episode, he's like, you know, oh, it was all the little things. That's what made me realize it wasn't you. And it's like, well, what? Like you didn't realize until y'all were in the bunker that it was actually not her. But it's like, I guess looking back, hindsight's 2020, right? So that was pretty interesting. This was a very interesting episode. I had a few little problems, and we'll talk about it as we go through the episode and everything. But I'm not going to say I was disappointed with the ending, but I did not expect the ending to go the way that it did. Like,
exactly.
You know, like I was like kind of caught off guard, and I was like, this just doesn't feel right. I know we're setting up for season 5, and that's going to be the final season and everything like that. But it felt like at the end of this episode, Butcher's just kind of out doing his own thing. He's lone wolfing it, and everybody else is just kind of just screwed, for lack of a better term, you know? So...
Yeah, back to the Huey thing too. It seems like he had ideas, but he wasn't sure because of some of the changes, and maybe he thought it was just her finally accepting the whole Annie Starlight dynamic. You know, like she's having problems with because of her powers. But yeah, definitely that the whole thing about the heat and the temperature when they're in the bunker with the president-elect, and going through that. But also too, what's interesting is that they had an inside person in there as well, recording audio of what was going down, and that's how we get to basically the whole dynamic of Newman. Well, first of all, you know, with Homelander threatening her and threatening to take her daughter, he outs her. That was the funny part too, when he outed her on TV. When he laser beamed her for the whole world to see.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course, you know, Firecracker's gonna go along with it because she basically is his, you know, whatever he says goes type person. And threatens her and threatens to take her daughter and send a piece of her daughter to him every day, you know, and so forth. So that was an interesting turn in the finale that I didn't see coming.
One of the other biggest problems that I had is they're 4 stories below ground in an underground bunker, sealed up, locked up tight, and Starlight appears. And they're like, how did you get here? Oh, I used Find My iPhone. And that's how, like, what? Like, that just made no sense to me. And I was like, top secret government bunker. And she used the Find My iPhone app or whatever to go find wherever they were. And she just goes right there, and nobody stopped her. There was no levels of Secret Service or anything to prevent her from getting down there. Nobody saw her and questioned. She just runs in. And I mean, great fight scene. I liked when she killed the shapeshifter in this episode.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was kind of lazy and kind of just like, you know. Because that shapeshifter, she put it on them, and she broke Kimiko's neck and literally like twisted her head backwards. And I remember thinking, like, right before there, I was like, oh, you know, Kimiko, like, that's great line of defense. And then she gets to that point and it's like, oh, okay, well then never mind. Like, you know, like she'll be back, but it just takes her a little bit to heal. It normally takes her like 5 or 10 minutes to kind of pull herself back together. So I was kind of like, oh, wow. So, like, you know, Starlight, of course, comes in at the right time and changes the outcome. But yeah, you know, it was just, that was such a weird moment. And everything with the bunker and everything like that, like, it went kind of, I thought it was kind of crazy because, like, obviously he's president-elect, and then they changed this whole kind of thing, and, like, Newman's the enemy. Newman is a soup, and, you know, Singer earlier on in the season knew she was a soup. He knew it, you know, previously, but then he never really made it public. So then, like, he goes out once it's public and is like, if she's not honest with the American people, then, we've got to get rid of her, kind of type of thing. And yeah, I mean, it seems like this was just one of the most chaotic episodes to me. Like, there was just utter chaos in every direction. And Homelander's upset. I mean, when he gets mad and torches his apartment because he finds the picture of Billy Butcher and Becca and the dog, I was just like, really? Like, and he comes back, and then later on in the episode, he's sitting there watching a TV where you can only see like this much of the screen. Like, what is going on, man? But yeah, I mean, just utter chaos this episode. And I'm really curious, not to kind of jump towards the end, but I'm really curious to see what is going to happen to everybody kind of moving forward into season 5, because it feels like we're kind of left with the huge cliffhanger with this season finale.
Yeah, and before we get back to that, yeah, I do agree with you on the whole Annie thing of her just going down there and showing up. Maybe she knew what the plan was. Maybe they thought that she left and was coming back. Who knows? But it does feel like kind of a gap there, how she just showed up at the right place at the right time to kind of help save the day. And you're right too with the whole Singer thing and knowing about Newman and kind of not saying anything until now. It's that whole thing, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. They kind of understand what's going on. So I can see that as well. And then the whole thing with Homelander, it seems like his weakness is one, being alone is his biggest weakness. His second biggest weakness is Ryan betraying him, because you can tell the way he acts and how his demeanor changes when Ryan does things that he doesn't want to. Like before, when Ryan went and saw Butcher, he told him, or he knew, and they had the whole argument. Then he went back. And so you can definitely see that the blind spot with him outside of being alone is Ryan. The other thing too here is that, him wanting to put the hit on Newman, and then Newman, it happening, and then him getting arrested. It's like everything's falling into plan, especially with the Speaker of the House, I believe that was at Tech Knight's house for the succession plan.
What was his name? Like, was that Speaker Calhoun or whatever his name was?
Or something like that. Yeah. So everything kind of fall into plan. And even though that he kind of dispatched and kicked out Sister Sage, her plan was still in motion. It's like we always thought she was doing more behind the scenes that we didn't know about to make sure that it's happy. And, I thought that she used it to her advantage. But it seemed like she was still working for Homelander and wanted the plan to proceed, even though that she knew that Homelander got rid of her. It's almost like, she has to be right. Her plan has to work, in challenging herself to see if it could. So that was very interesting as well. Her coming back with the balloon for Ryan and kind of congratulating him, and Homelander kind of shocked that she's still on his side.
And this all happens right after Homelander is like, gather a list of everybody who's a threat to me or has dirt on me or whatever. And Ashley's like, yeah, sure thing. Gives him the list. And he's like, all right, we kill all these people. And it's like, oh, wow. And then I love it. The Deep's like, well, wouldn't Ashley be at the top of this list? And he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. Kill her, too. Like, whatever. And so she runs in and injects herself with Compound V. And they leave us on that cliffhanger of whatever happens to her, because we see her wig fall off. We see her starting to go through a transformation.
Yeah.
But I was like thinking to myself, like, what is she going to like Hulk out or something? Like become like a big monster or something, Like it seemed like something was going to happen there. And yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with that in season 5, because they kind of left that alone after they kind of showed us that, it just kind of disappeared. And the other thing was we saw Mallory die in this episode.
By Ryan.
By Ryan. And I like, after watching that happen, I still think Ryan's going to end up being good. And, she was making that appeal to his humanity, and he was calling her anti-Mallory and stuff like that. And, it's one of those things to me where even though she died, I almost was wondering in my own head, did Butcher almost kind of like snap a little bit when she died? Because like he just went straight up, like when he went to go meet Newman, it was like no holding back. He walked in there, like they were having a discussion, and he just like literally tentacles come out of his chest and just grab her and rip her in half. And it's done. And he tells Frenchie, you can shoot me with that thing if you want to. Yeah. And Frenchie won't pull the trigger, and he just grabs the gun and walks away. So It seems like this is really going to an all-out war, and it seems like Butcher's kind of like a rogue kind of person. And with that ending, it makes me feel like maybe Ryan's going to run off and come back or something because he's going to be upset about killing Mallory, or once he finds that out or something. And it's going to be one of those moments where it's like you are basically like the monster your father kind of is, kind of type of deal, but you can redeem yourself and maybe he'll come back. But I mean, this show kind of ended right the season with kind of Annie and Butcher being the only two that are out there in the world that are going to be free because everybody else was taken.
Yep.
And we know that the Supes have been mobilized to be like a
Soup army,
a police force, and take people. And they basically instituted martial law. And Homelander is, of course, in charge of all the Supes, and they're supposed to take his command and everything. And I'm not going to lie, I laughed so hard when we saw Love Sausage make his appearance again. And Mother's Milk is like in there washing his hands, and the thing like taps him. And we all know what that thing is. But, I got a good laugh out of that. And we also saw in this episode Sam and Kate from Gen V again.
Yeah, which I kind of figured they're going to make an appearance again because of that whole thing that they had before in the previous episodes. So I figured they'd make a thing, and it was wise for them to send them after Kimiko and Frenchie, given that they were the biggest threat besides Starlight. So but go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and we didn't see him for very long either.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like a quick in and out, but they took Frenchie and she walked up and, touched Frenchie, and then Frenchie instantly followed her. And we see Kimiko scream, and that's kind of like her breaking her silence. But I feel like there's some nefarious intentions maybe for Frenchie.
Yep.
I feel like because we know that he's great with science and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like maybe there's some sort of plan to use him for maybe something. I don't know if they're going to maybe like ask him to tell what was going on with the Supe virus or what. But, at the end of this episode, we see Homelander is basically on the run. He's got his powers, and it seems like that thing inside of him, it almost kind of feels like at the end of this episode that the thing inside of him, after seeing Joe Kessler so much, is almost like suicidal, like it wants to kill itself almost, like, for being a Supe. And even though it is like a Supe, that he is a Supe, like it's almost like it's like wanting to kill itself because it's talking to him as Joe Kessler and telling him like, you need to commit this genocide and all this kind of stuff on the Supe. So it's a very weird kind of back and forth. And this was my other biggest issue with the episode, is we have not seen that Cindy girl the entire show since she escaped the asylum. The one that had like the powers and was like blowing people's heads up in the asylum and everything like that. And she makes her appearance at the end of this episode, we see. And she I'm guessing that was her that dropped the boat in front of Huey and Starlight.
And when Starlight took off, yeah.
Yeah, so and Starlight takes off, and so Huey kind of gives her the nod, like, yeah, go. And I was kind of like, okay, has she just been out there? Did like somebody go and recruit her? Like, how did that work? It seemed like she was kind of like a rogue person
in the wind
for a while. And I felt like when we saw that person in Congress or whatever, way back like a season or two ago, when they had their head explode, and we knew it was Newman that did it, I felt like they were trying to frame Cindy as the one to be responsible for that. And I don't really think that got really like flushed out really at all. So I was just really surprised and really caught off guard to see her there, And to be honest, when Newman died, I got on social media and I had that spoiled for me. So I had seen that before I even watched the episode, and I was just like, oh no. And then once I watched the episode, I was literally like, because that thing is so much like Venom, right?
Yeah.
The tentacles coming out of him. And my girlfriend loves Venom. So I was like, hey, come over here. The Venom thing is happening, So, and she does not like the boys. She hates the boys. She doesn't like how bloody and gruesome they can be at times, which I get it. But I mean, I was just really shocked and caught off guard by the ending of this episode. I felt like the way that it ended was not what I expected. And with everybody kind of taken into custody or trapped or whatever, it felt like there's almost like there's no way out going into season 5,
Yeah.
right? Like, so I don't know. What were your thoughts on the ending?
So before that, I want to kind of get to we have a new person with us today. So hi, Melissa. And Melissa via YouTube says I had a theory about Victoria, that she could possibly be the shapeshifter. And that's a good thought too. Did she actually die? Because it almost seemed like the shapeshifter died way too easily by Starlight. It seemed like. And then two, how could Newman get killed that easily when we've seen so far that she's been pretty much invincible? So something's not right here. Either it's a trick, or maybe it was the shapeshifter. That's a good shot, Melissa, because a person that big in this, I don't think they would kill off like that. Because we saw in the first episode, she took a bullet to the head, she took acid to her body, her face, her upper torso, didn't even phase her. And so I don't think that she died that easily, especially if she has the same powers as Marie, and we know that they do. That either she did get ripped apart, and because she couldn't have line of sight at Butcher when he did, or I'm sorry, it wasn't Butcher, it was really Kessler. When that happened, that's why she got subdued like that. But I don't think she's dead, and I can almost see at the beginning of season 5 that if that was her, that she pulled herself back together. And she's out there and she's with a vengeance, especially looking for her daughter. And thanks for the thought. And hi, Melissa, thanks for joining us. But a couple of things back to what you said, I do think that him seeing Mallory get killed by Ryan was the final straw for Butcher. He was already saying, I'm sorry, boys, I let you down, this kind of that stuff. And then he basically pretty much fully let Kessler take over. And so that's where we see where him show up and him doing all those things. And that's why he seems like he's healthy, because he let basically that he kind of said, I'm done, threw his hands up and let Kessler take over, which he was kind of fighting before, especially after seeing his longtime ally or person in command of him, Mallory, get killed so easily. They totally thank you, Melissa, for the kind thoughts as well. And yeah, especially with the whole thing with Ryan. Becca was not there to kind of be the good conscience on him as well. So that's the one piece there. Butcher showing up, and I thought that was interesting. Whereas kind of Zoe didn't do anything, and we've seen her pretty ferocious, especially when it comes to her mom in earlier episodes. That was kind of weird for me.
And then she ends up back in the orphanage, and I was so confused about that, because I was like, well, Samir didn't die.
Yeah.
Samir didn't die, right? So that's her father. So shouldn't she go to Samir? But it seems like they just kind of put her in the orphanage, and I was like, that's kind of, I don't know, like it felt weird. And I will say this about the, this, you never really think about it, but the whole thing with the shapeshifter, like, there could be tons of people who are shapeshifters, right? Like that's kind of like a low key kind of spy thing. And I like Melissa's idea, because even if it's not the same shapeshifter, it could be another
one. Yeah.
And one of the things that kind of slipped past the gate with Annie was her powers were on the fritz, right?
Yep.
So, unless you see a suit use their powers, you probably wouldn't know if they were a shapeshifter or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Had some sort of like differentiating power from a shapeshifter. So, I mean, a majority of them have super strength and all that kind of stuff. So, and it was very interesting. And kind of just jumping back to the whole Samir thing, we saw Newman give her daughter those powers so she could protect herself. And it seems like at the end of this season, she is not protected. She ended up just in the same position as Newman did. We know Edgar is out there somewhere, but I'm going to assume maybe Edgar comes for her, maybe. And because that was part of his deal originally, was he wanted to protect Zoe. So he was going to try and protect her. So it'll be really interesting to see if he makes his appearance again. I don't imagine he'll be back for like the whole season if he does for season 5. But I would imagine maybe he comes back for maybe one more episode or so.
Yep. I'd agree. I definitely think that Stan Edgar's going to show up and get her out of there. I also think, too, that Newman didn't have some kind of contingency plan after the conversation with Homelander, after what she saw at Tech Knight's mansion, after the conversation with Huey, that, her walking into that, unless she just, fully trusted Huey and they didn't expect what happened to Butcher, because they all seemed shocked when Kessler as Butcher showed up. So there's that piece. Then going with the rest of it, yeah, I think it's kind of weird that I get that with Kimiko and Frenchie, they're trying to get on a ship somewhere to go somewhere, kind of low key type of thing. And I thought that was interesting that Kimiko was easily taken down by Sam because I figured she could go toe to toe with Sam, and maybe because she saw what happened to Frenchie from Kate that she kind of just gave up, and it was interesting too that we finally heard her voice. She actually, or not voice, but she actually made noise. She screamed. And it's sad too because it seemed like Kimiko and Frenchie were finally coming to that point where they were on like this teeter totter of are they going to be in a relationship or not, and they finally came to that understanding, and then it seemed like they were both that kiss and all that kind of stuff. So that was probably the saddest moment for me was those two because hopefully Kate does not erase his mind to where he forgets Kimiko as we go into the next season. I thought it was kind of weird though that Mother's Milk was in a public airport getting ready to fly to go meet his family. I thought that was kind of odd. You would think he would have some kind of, excuse me, you would think he would have some kind of other exit plan to get out of the country and get to Costa Rica or Belize, one of the two?
I think it was Belize.
Okay, to where his family was. So him being in the bathroom was kind of weird in the public airport, but I love the fact that they used love sausages to take him down.
Yeah, and I mean that goes back to Herogasm, right? Because wasn't he didn't he wrap that around Mother's Milk's neck at one point, and he was like being strangled by him at one point. So yeah, it does seem kind of odd. And, we saw them basically institute martial law. So obviously that's really never happened in the United States that we know of in modern times. But like at the same time, I'm kind of like, wouldn't all the flights not be moving like they were?
Yeah.
So it definitely had me questioning some things, just like how when Kimiko and Frenchie were going to go get on a ship, they were given passports before they left, but it seemed like they were sneaking onto a ship. So I was like, why do they need passports for that?
Possibly, yeah, but they were given fake passports and possibly just for the ship and possibly their destination. So I kind of get the fake passports just, on different ways, but going public airlines though, ships can come in and out, but you're right, with martial law, you would think the airports would be shut down, especially public transportation. I can see with Kimco and Frenchie because it's kind of shipping yard and they're kind of probably smuggling part piece or know somebody to get on the boat to get them out. But yeah, the Mother's Milk thing was weird.
And I'll say this too. I feel like they were, and I could be wrong, but I swear Huey and Starlight's passports said Canada on them, which makes me believe that they were going to Canada.
Yep.
So let's pretend that they're going to Canada for a second. Wouldn't they have an issue getting out of the United States at the border, if martial law is in effect? It's just interesting.
We all know that you can cross the border in non-official ways.
Well, that's true.
And so they're probably going to use a non-official way to get across the border, but have the passports for when they're actually in Canada in case they get stopped in Canada.
Fake identity.
And it seemed like finally that Annie was coming to her realization about who she was, the whole thing that Newman called her out for about her powers not working, and those coming back. And that fly off was pretty cool because he was like, just go, just go. Don't worry about me. So yeah, it seems like the boys are in a very bad spot going into season 5. And it seems like the only person that can really get them out that we know of right now is Annie, is Star-Lord. I'm sorry, Starlight's not Star-Lord. Is Annie / Starlight. So I wonder what other kind of allies that she'll have. We know there's the whole Starlighter stuff, but you got to think with martial law and that coming around that a lot of the Starlighters will be rounded up. So I wonder what kind of ally she's going to get, which makes me believe going into season 5, we are going to see Marie and the others that were locked up at the end of Gen V season 1. Now, I do have some news about that, so this might help us bring a bridge to this, but Gen V season 2 is aimed at a 2025 release. They've been in production for several weeks now, probably a month or two. So that was via the wrap. So we know that Gen V is coming out next year. And at The Boys, Carl Urban confirms The Boys' final season releases in 2026. So it looks like next year we'll have Gen V, which will fill some of the gap and help us answer some of these questions, especially with Marie and crew and Jordan. And I keep forgetting the girl that can shrink and grow, the young lady's name.
Oh, I don't remember her name either.
But the three of them, because we know the other guy's not coming back because they said they're not going to replace him in the show. So, and rest in peace to him. And that's very unfortunate news. But we know the three of them are going to be involved in the next season, and is that where Andy's going to have to go, is find out where they are and use them as allies to help. And again, is Newman really dead? Is she someone that can help out? And then what's Stan Egger's role going to be? So all those things are interesting going into season 5, how they're going to end this series. But also too, the day after the finale, the boys released a poster of that iconic shot from the comics where you see Butcher on the White House lawn walking towards the White House, but it wasn't a comic panel exactly. Everything else was there, but instead of Butcher, it was Homelander. So that was telling as well. So it almost seems like that we're going into Gen V season 2, The Boys season 5 with Homelander in the White House, and pretty much we saw that he's pretty much in full control.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where season 5 goes. I think we're probably going to start off kind of fast because it seems like everything's kind of just gotten way out of control. Obviously, we know Sister Sage said that part of this was all part of her plan, and she basically had the speaker that had stepped up to be the president at that point because Newman was gone, and with Singer gone, then he's, of course, going to be the next one in line. So at this point, it kind of feels like, everything is headed towards everything Homelander wanted and more.
Yep.
He got exactly what he wanted. And I loved what Sister Sage said in this episode about, like, she did it just to see if she could do it kind of thing.
Yeah, she wanted to challenge herself.
Yeah, and she did it. And so at the end of this, I feel like, she made a mention that was phase 1. Now we're in phase 2. So it'll be interesting to see what phase 2 entails going forward.
From Melissa from the comments here, she says, yes, I think season 2 of Gen V is going to be awesome. I think so as well. I love season 1, but I think season 2 is going to be better. And I think Jordan and Marie and the other young lady, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name, are all going to be an important role next season. And also I think they're going to play possibly, if not all of them, at least some of them will play an important role in season 5 of The Boys. Now, the biggest thing too is we finally got a post-credit scene, and we find out that that Homelander realizes that Soldier Boy is still alive, and we see a shot of him saying he was here the entire time and we didn't know, and you see him in his like Winter Soldier-esque like captivity coma. And so I was hoping we actually would see Soldier Boy. I was hoping that scene in the trailer where they showed Mallory hitting that button, that was basically releasing Soldier Boy, but we found out that was her trying to lock Ryan, knock him out and keep him safe with them. But Soldier Boy did make an appearance, and it looks like Soldier Boy is going to be a part of season 5. Now, with that being said, him and Homelander weren't on the best pieces of business there in terms when we saw Soldier Boy last season in that final fight with Homelander. So that dynamic, especially if they wake up Soldier Boy, will be interesting. And, there's still rumors that, was it Jared Padalecki, I think his name is?
Padalecki, yeah.
Padalecki will also be in season 5. We don't know what the character is going to be. So that dynamic will be interesting also. Now, one thing I thought about, as far as allies for the boys, we forgot that A-Train's still out there, and A-Train kind of flipped sides and took off. I wonder if A-Train is going to come back and somehow... Because I wonder, it'd be just, kind of cool that if we start off season 5 and we go back to that scene with Mother's Milk in the airport, and all of a sudden A-Train shows up, grabs Mother's Milk, and takes off. And that's where we kind of get the start of A-Train and Mother's Milk, and somehow they find Annie, and that's how the boys team starts getting things back out there to get things back together. I think A-Train will be on that side as well. I'm not sure what other soups will be out there. But one last thing before I hand back over, the whole Ashley thing. We all saw that Black Noir and the Deep were killing people, and they're like, what's Ashley's last name? Like, they don't know if there's 2 Ashleys, and the one Ashley they killed was not on the list. I thought it was kind of interesting with Ashley taking the Compound V, only because I was hoping that we would have gotten a flashback to when A-Train caught her in the room and she had like snuck out a dose and took a dose, at some point up to that point, and then the Deep and Black Noir would try to dispatch of her, and she would basically show us her powers and then take off. I thought that would have been a much cooler scene than of her just taking the Compound V now, and showing that she transforms, but not sure into what.
Yeah, and It has me questioning, and I could be wrong about this, but we see all those vials have been removed from Homelander's cabinet that have the compound V in it in his room. So obviously Ashley knew that they were there, so I would assume that that's where a majority of them were being kept at this point, right?
I think all of them that were in Vought Tower are actually being kept in there.
Yeah, so I don't really believe that Homelander has been like juicing up on those things, right? Like, I don't think he's been doing what A-Train was doing, but it almost makes me wonder if he has been planning on either giving people Compound V and making more soups, or yeah, there's like a secret group or something. Because we know when A-Train took it, it made him a little bit nuts, but it made him faster. He was taking Compound V to make himself faster. That's how he won that race against, I think it was Shockwave, when he raced that guy.
Yep.
And that was when he was being threatened to lose his spot in the 7 or win the race. So he won the race and kind of juiced himself up and, barely beat Shockwave. And yeah, I mean, like, I would love to see them do something with like another speedster, have another speedster fight with A-Train, have that come back around. But I love your idea about A-Train coming in and saving everybody, like at the first episode coming back in season 5. Just
well, at least they have Mother's Milk. I would say at least saving him in that scene right there.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, imagine like A-Train's the type he can run in, save Mother's Milk, take him to Belize, drop him off, like go somewhere else, take them, like whatever. And within 5-10 minutes, he could have saved everybody and taken them somewhere. And I'm going to assume that for Homelander, and they made this kind of, I guess, foreshadowing moment earlier on in the season, but basically the argument was made that with what was about to happen, nobody was going to be safe anywhere in the world, kind of type of deal. And that was what Mother's Milk was kind of talking to his wife about, was, y'all can, y'all can go, because they were talking about being a family again and everything like that. And he was like, y'all can go, and the most important thing is for you to be safe. But if you leave and I go with you, what's about to happen here is going to be so bad that, it might happen all the way out there. Yeah. And I don't imagine that this is going to be something that's just limited to North America. This is going to be something that kind of impacts the whole world, when it's all said and done. So I'll be interested to see, A-Train disappeared. He pulled his chip out of his arm or wherever the chip was. That identified where he was. So he's kind of in the wind now. We know he took his family and hid them somewhere. So it seems like A-Train is kind of prepared for this, but it'll be interesting to see. I would like to see him in the beginning of season 5, but I could also see him just waiting until the end of season 5 in the finale to be a difference maker, like in the final fight, and help kill Homelander, kind of type of thing. Would be cool.
You know who else is still out there? Queen Maeve. And we know that after those blasts by Soldier Boy, that the powers. No, wait. They had to re-inject Kimiko with Compound V. Mm-hmm. So I almost wonder if she's going to play a role. Did possibly she have access to Compound V somewhere, or does that part of the plan for season 5 is to get her back on Compound V? Maybe that piece also, because we know that Ashley erased the tape of them basically grabbing Queen Maeve at the end of season 4 and helping cover up that she was dead. So we know that there's the thing with Ashley. Does Ashley kind of grab some extra Compound V and find Queen Maeve as part of that? Does Ashley join the fight with the boys also? So we do have some things for a team out there that possibly could help out in season 5. What was I going to say? I just went blank. What was I going to say? The Homelander thing. So we saw the whole thing with Homelander this season was him coming to reality that he's getting older. He was losing hair. He kept looking at himself in the mirror. We saw it was either this episode or last episode where he threw that stuff out. So it almost makes you wonder, could he have been juicing with a little bit of Compound V to help himself?
Maybe.
Along with dispersing it.
That jar that he pulled out in this episode was absolutely filled with hair. I mean, that was like, what in the world, because I feel like earlier on in the in the season, it was basically one of those things where he had just a little bit of hair in that jar.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden at the end of the season, it's like,
Full.
It's packed. Yeah. So it seems like he's kind of losing it over the fact that he's aging. And we know that, yeah, he probably ages a little bit slower, but he's kind of middle-aged now. So it's like almost natural for him to, he's not immortal, right? Like we know that. So he kind of, I guess, sees himself as a god. So this is incredibly shocking to him. And this position that he's in now is kind of like him going to basically be moving to seize power to kind of fulfill that spot in his head where he sees himself being, the most powerful being and should be in charge and everything. And we saw Sister Sage. She basically told him that the new president was just going to fall in line and do whatever he said and basically do what Newman did not plan on doing.
Yep.
And that's exactly what he wants, which is just to do whatever he wants, no questions asked, and nobody to challenge him. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I feel like he's going to go a little bit more nuts in season 5. It's been a slow kind of snowball for him where it's gotten really out of control at this point. Like he loses it over everything.
So going into season 5, we have our wild cards, which is Kessler as Butcher, which he has the virus that looks like he's going to go find Homelander. There's your one wild card. We don't know if Butcher's going to take back over, what's going to happen with Butcher. Are we going to see Becca again? But there's wild card number 1. Wild card number 2 is going to be Ryan. We don't know. We figure out he's going to probably fall on the boys' side, but we know that he's still a wild card, is what we saw with Mallory, and he kind of goes back and forth between Butcher and Homelander. Wild card number 3 is going to be Soldier Boy. Because last time, again, we saw Soldier Boy, he was kind of his own and wasn't the best interaction. Basically, he didn't have the best words for Homelander. So there's those 3 wild cards out there. I'll get to your question in a second once I finish the thought. We know on the 7, actually, another wild card is going to be Ashley. We know that Ashley is going to be against the 7, but we don't know if that makes her an ally of the boys. The 7 we have left still. We have, of course, Homelander, the Deep, Black Noir, I say air quotes because of that, and Firecracker and Sage. So we have basically 5 of the 7 out there for it. We have them. The boys that we know that are out there in the loose still is going to, I'm sorry, A-Train's a wild card too, so we actually have another wild card, but we think that he's going to align with the boys. We still have Annie out there / Starlight. Everyone else is caught. Queen Maeve is out there. I wonder if they're going to have any other allies or if the CIA agency has any other contingency plans that we don't know about. So going into season 5, it's going to be very interesting. Oh, then plus we don't know what the Gen V people are going to do as well as another wild card. So we have a lot of things in the air going into season 5. It'll be very interesting to see how they stick the landing, because I think they really did stick the landing of season 4. They totally had me completely wrong on where I thought they were going in this final episode. I thought Newman would be in power. I thought Homelander might be disabled or possibly, in the same position as Soldier Boy, for a little bit. We still haven't seen the Children of Stormfront yet, so which I think might come into play in season 5 with this Soup Army. So yeah, but let me get to Melissa's question real quick. So Melissa asked, "Can I ask? Do you guys really think all this was Sage's plan?" I think it was her plan. I think she was dealing on the back end with other things, especially with the whole shapeshifter. I guarantee, because that shapeshifter took Annie over, and she was the one talking to the shapeshifter, that was their plan, was to, especially with getting Annie out. And taking over for Annie. I also think that she had someone planted in there to get the recording of Singer talking about killing Newman, because they know once they got those two, because let me say this, they knew that once they got Singer out of the way, they had 2 options. Option 1 was definitely going to go with Newman if Newman stayed on their side, especially that conversation between her and Homelander. I think her contingency plan, though, was the Speaker of the House, because at that Tech Night party, they had everyone lined up to be able to have that in place. So I definitely think she had contingency plans. I think this was her plan. I almost thought at some point that she might betray Homelander because he fired her. But like Alex said, someone being that smart, they need some kind of a challenge. They need to make sure that, there's something to challenge themselves and to test themselves. So that's why she still went along with the plan, which makes sense. But I was wrong in my assumption that she might have something else up her sleeve.
I feel like they almost, or I'll say the Sister Sage almost always knew that at some point Newman would fold, right, and go against Homelander, but she just didn't know exactly when that would be. But eventually, it would end with her dying, and that happening, by Butcher's hand was completely unexpected. But it just one of those things. Oh, it moves up the timetable, kind of type of thing. Like it's just like another domino has fallen that I kind of wanted to. And I feel like her dying was and getting Singer out of the way to kind of push that on Singer was ultimately a way to kind of clear the board and get exactly what they wanted, which was, I'm sure that maybe that person that became the new president, Speaker Calhoun or whatever his name was, I don't remember exactly. I think that was it. But I'm going to assume 100% that part of him probably accepting Homelander and everything was the fact that he wanted to be president and he wanted to do all that. So he kind of let them kind of clear the board for him a little bit to kind of move up, And yeah, I mean, now it seems like we're going to have Homelander who's going to be in the president's back pocket, but is really going to be doing whatever he wants to. And I'm sure this is ultimately going to end with Homelander somehow trying to seize control of the White House once, because that's Homelander's ultimate deal, right? As soon as somebody goes against him, he just kills you or gets you out of the way, however he decides to do so. So with Sage, I think it was really surprising why he didn't kill her when he went against her. But I think the ultimate reason there was he knew that there might come a point when she would be needed at some point when he couldn't figure his way out. Because when Ashley was upset with him for, basically outing Newman as a soup, she was like, great, you just turned half the country against half the country or whatever. And what are you going to do? Lock them up? Was that part of your plan the whole time? He seemed like shocked and was like, oh, yeah, that was my plan the whole time. So it's like, Homelander just does things and doesn't think. And the person that he needs is Sage. So even with getting rid of her, I think she was always going to be kind of his ace in the hole. Like, she was always going to be in his back pocket to where when he needed her, he would go right back to her and not really go against her too much. So I think that's why he was so surprised when she showed back up at the end of the episode. And was kind of like, oh, this was the plan all along. I just couldn't tell you some things. And it's because, like, I knew you would mess them up because that's what Homelander does, right? So, yeah, I think this was ultimately part of her plan. And I'm really curious to see where phase 2 goes. And I like the way that they did that in this show, because when you have a character that's like the world's smartest character, it should not be something that you should easily be able to telegraph on like screen, like where they're going with the story and the plot and everything. So I like what they did.
I think phase 2 is going to lead to prisons. Remember, they have access to tech. Even though Tech Knight's out of the picture, he was still in the picture for his prison system and that he owns. So I think that's part of it. Also, too, what was Elizabeth Shue's character's name? She was in season 1 and 2. She was the Ashley at the time.
Oh, shoot.
I can't remember her character's name.
Oh, Madison Stillwell?
Yeah, Madison Stillwell. So also remember, too, that Vought Industries, or what do they call it? Vought always had that Speaker Calhoun in their pocket. Remember, they used Doppelganger to trick him and get video to blackmail him?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so they've always had... Thank you, Melissa, as well, Madeline Stillwell. So at some point, the 7/Vought has always had Stillwell in their pocket, and I wonder if that's going to play anything with possible Edgar Stan coming back in the future, and that could be the conflict between President Calhoun and Homelander. Let me see what Melissa says here. Okay, thank you guys, LOL. It's just her response is always, that was part of my plan. I know she's an evil genius, but she will mess up. Yes, exactly. She will probably have some mistakes, and she probably won't see everything and plan everything properly, but in the end, she got the results that she was looking for. I think Homelander firing her was like one of the things where she messed up and not letting Homelander in on some of her plans. I think that was part of the issue, and Homelander trusting Firecracker. So that's what the mess up was, but in the end, her plan kind of still worked out. Speaking of Firecracker, I wonder if we're going to get to a point where Firecracker and Sage come to a head because of the comments and the remarks and how Firecracker treats Sage.
Hmm.
So that was something to watch too as well.
They seem like they're at kind of opposite ends, of point of views on things. And let's be honest here. I mean, Firecracker, like I said before, she reminds me of Jubilee, right? Like that's kind of what her powers are. But it seems like she's way in over her head on the
Yep.
seven. Like I like everybody else is running around like putting fists through people's skulls and stuff like that. She's like chasing after somebody and is sick as a dog, and then finally pulls out a gun and shoots somebody because she's tired of chasing them, right? And at the end of the day, she's just there because she's a yes person for Homelander, and he's giving her something, or excuse me, she's giving him something that he wants. So ultimately, at the end of the day, she's going to be expendable, and she'll get tossed to the side, I think, in season 5, as soon as like she's too sick to do what he wants her to do because of the drugs she was taking and everything. Yeah, I think that's gonna, because like he basically told her in this episode, he was like, you go sit way down there at the end of the table where you can't cough on me, it's disgusting,
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where her perspective is going to be ultimately, and she's just going to get thrown to the side like everybody else does with Homelander.
So we are set up for a pretty good season 5. So Gen V season 2 next year. The Boys season 5, 2026. Looking forward to it, and I can't wait. Anything else before we go on to the news about The Boys?
Interested to see where season 5 picks up, and I love that they use that shot that is very similar to the comics, but of course they just switched out Homelander for Butcher walking up to the White House. You got Homelander walking up to the White House, so it's like them teasing that one way or another Homelander is gonna go to the White House, and take it by force, basically, or with everybody complying. So that's kind of where we're headed, and it'll be really interesting to see what they do with Homelander and if they kill him in the next season, because I feel like this is ultimately going to end with the finale of season 5 having him be killed. And I almost feel like Soldier Boy being teased for season 5 is going to be part of that, because Soldier Boy is going to see him, because Homelander's basically his son, right?
Yep.
So like he basically told him he was disappointed in him in the previous season. And I think that's what's going to happen in this, is he's going to be like, I have to get rid of this because he is like basically disrespecting me because he's my son and he just needs attention so much. And that's not what I'm about. And that's what he's about. And I got to stop that, because he told him he was a disappointment. So, I feel like Soldier Boy might kind of be expected to take Homelander's side and may end up going against him, and then just kind of throwing another kink in the whole thing. So.
Melissa, no need to apologize. We love the interaction. We love people asking questions in the chat. So it's never annoying. That's what we're here for. So feel free to ask away and post questions and be involved in the chat. We really appreciate that. My only thing too is I hope we get Jared. What's the last name? Padalecki. I don't want to say it wrong again. I hope we get him as that Thor character, and I hope we see the Eternity Gauntlet that we've seen in the comics. So I hope that's part of the season 5 where we saw this season a couple wild things. I hope that's one of the wild season 5 things.
I would love a supernatural reunion with that, just having him, because obviously we know the showrunner for the script. He is the guy who did Supernatural. We know Jensen Ackles is from that, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan and everything. But there's one more person I want to see, and that's Misha Collins, who played Captain in Supernatural. I don't know what they would make him, like what character. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. I wish they had like a Constantine like character that instead of magic just did something with suit powers, kind of similar, and just have him wear a trench coat just like he did as Castiel and basically wear the same outfit and come back. It would be so funny and so kind of meta. But yeah, I would love for him to come back as well. But obviously at this point, I would love to take Jared, back as maybe a child of Stormfront, like that Thor kind of like character that the Boys has, because, he's a big, tall guy. I think that would be perfect for him, and just kind of have him be, a suit that is just hopefully in more than one episode, because I would love to see him throughout the season at least, so.
Have we had a soup that can replicate other soups' powers yet? I can't remember in this Boys series at all. Or is there a Boys character from the pages that can basically be like a Peter or Sylar type person.
I'm thinking.
Because the
I don't.
Collins guy could be his character next season if they did that. And I think that would
Yeah.
be a very handy soup to be able to do what the other soup powers can do. Around
Yeah,
those.
my brain for some reason keeps on thinking of Repro and I think it's Jupiter's Legacy. I don't
Yep.
know if you've ever read those comics. They're so weird looking, some of the artwork in them, but that guy had pretty cool powers. Basically, if you were within like a certain proximity of him, he could just replicate your powers and take them as his own. So he was like a force. But I can't think of off the top of my head anybody who's like that. I could be wrong, of course, but I'm not saying that there isn't somebody, but I just can't think of anybody from what I've read in the boys that I can remember. So I even get like the speedsters confused, right? Because there was like Marathon before there was like A Train and stuff like that, and then we had like Shockwave in the show, and I don't remember if Shockwave was an actual like the boys character or what. So there's a lot of characters and stuff that they've kind of changed around a little bit and everything. So it would be interesting. Like A Train for as far as I remember did not have as much of a story as A Train does in the show, and I love what they've done with A Train in the show. So I've loved that they've really flushed that character out.
Training A Train.
Yeah, training
that cracked
A-Train.
me up when Will Ferrell showed up this season to play that role. So
he's part of that universe apparently. So
yep. And then in season 1 we got what's his name? Oh man, he's involved in the show too. And they had him show up in season 1 or 2. Seth.
Seth Rogen.
Yeah, Seth Rogen. When they had him in a scene earlier in the season 2, so they kind of had some people involved behind the scenes, kind of show up in episodes.
And they had him in Black Noir do like an interview or something. And Black Noir just sat there and just didn't say a word the whole time. That's so funny. So yeah, they've definitely done some really funny stuff with the boys as well.
Well, that wraps up season 4 of The Boys. Like I said, really looking forward to Gen V season 2 and season 5 of The Boys to see how they close the series out and what they're kind of going to do going forward. Will we get more seasons of Gen V? Will they bring out some other shows from The Boys universe? That'll be interesting. I hope that after season 5, it's not the end, because I think from start to finish so far, this has been pretty much very good as far as putting something like this on the screen, and it's very different than what we see in DCU or DCEU or even the MCU. So
I always thought that at the end of The Boys, or like just during The Boys, we would get a spinoff of like Teenage Kicks, which is kind of like a Teen Titans kind of like team, but they just have very weird different powers in comparison to the Teen Titans. But we've seen them referenced in the show,
because A-Train and Sage were part of that.
Yeah, and Popclaw too.
Yeah.
So like, I think that I think the lineup was a little bit different in the comics. I know Popclaw and I think A-Train, I can't remember if he was part of it or not, but yeah, I mean, it was a little bit different in the comics, but I thought that they would do something like that. But I think they went the Gen V route, which I think was ultimately better, right? Because what's better than having like a team? Have a school full of people with superpowers, because then you just have like a plethora of content that you can kind of make out of that if you choose to. So hopefully they go like 5 seasons with Gen V or something, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
So keep it going.
All right, so moving on to the news. So starting off, Disney might have been hacked. Via the Hollywood Reporter, the hacker group that reportedly breached Disney claims to protect artist rights and ensure fair pay. The leaked info includes details on unreleased projects, internal communications, images, login, studio info, ad campaigns, and more. So, yeah, that's very interesting to see. Haven't seen more data leaked from that, but that was reported by the Hollywood Reporter. San Diego Comic-Con is this weekend, and Marvel is going to have a couple things there this weekend. So via Deadline, Kevin Feige reveals Marvel Studios will have 2 panels at Hall H for San Diego Comic-Con. July 25th will be Deadpool and Wolverine with Sean Levy, Hugh Jackman, and Ryan Reynolds. July 27th will be the upcoming Marvel movies panels. Promises a lot of fun stuff to look at about our upcoming movies. Also, too, Marvel Studios has adjusted their film schedule around what we would have already. Around what we would have ready to show at Comic-Con to announce, set the expectations and the tonality of what's to come over the next couple of years. Kevin Feige states, "I never consider superhero movies to be a genre in and of themselves. We make different types of movies. It's about making engaging, entertaining films that have to be experienced in a theater with a crowd and is worth people getting into their cars and making the trip." Now, as far as announcements, I don't think they'll go too far out in the schedule like they did last time there at Comic-Con. What I do think is we will get some fillers of gaps in the schedule. There's been some things floating around about Thor 5 and The Legend of Hercules as possibly a movie. I'm not sure that's true or not, but I've seen posters floating around with that. The
Love
other
the
one,
idea.
yeah, I love that because that builds on Thor 4 and the whole thing with Hercules and that kind of stuff we talked about in the past. The other is Shang-Chi and the Wreckage of Time is back out floating again as well. So we'll probably also get what Doctor Strange 3 is going to be. I don't expect Spider-Man news because Spider-Man is a Sony release schedule. Unless Sony comes in the room with Marvel to announce that. So I don't believe we'll get anything Spider-Man related. Avengers movies. Via the Hollywood Reporter, the Russo bros are in talks to direct Avengers 5 and Avengers Secret Wars. Avengers 5 is expected to get a new title and a new focus, moving away from Kang. Via Deadline, the Russo brothers are being brought into the fold at Marvel Studios on various fronts. So it sounds like if they can get them for this, they might be back for more. But Force priority will be directing both Avengers sequels. Via Jeff Snyder, Christopher Marcus and or Steve McFeely will reportedly help write Secret Wars, and Michael Waldron is currently writing the script. Now, a couple things here. It seems like the Russo brothers weren't their first choice. It seems like, because there was rumors about Sean Levy wanting to do this.
Yeah.
There were talks with other directors, so it's not like, they kind of were like the first choice to come back and do this. Also, too, I don't think the Russo brothers have really done anything big since Endgame.
Yeah.
And so it kind of feels like Marvel and the Russo brothers might need each other. I was kind of hoping that we get some fresh new perspective and kind of still, instead of doing some of the similar things in the past. But they did Endgame with all those characters pretty good. And if it's true that we're having a ton of characters in the Avengers 5 movie, that experience might really benefit them.
And they handled one of the best MCU movies, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That has some of the best fight sequences, I think, in the MCU. So at least one thing, if they do it, at least the fight choreography and everything, I think will be great, and it'll look good on screen and, all that. So I'm happy about that, at least having them back if they're, being considered.
I'm kind of bummed that we're hearing them move away from Kang. Just recast him. Don't move away from him. You kind of already set things up. Don't move away from him. And it's going to be kind of hard to see what are you going to do as the villain here. Will we find out who the multiverse of villain's going to be in Deadpool and Wolverine this week? Hopefully they don't try to shoehorn in Doctor Doom. I guess they could bring the Beyonder in. But I hope they don't try to shoehorn Doctor Doom in for this.
I feel like one of their biggest mistakes with Kang was making all his variants like the same actor in that one scene. Had they would have just let there be different people that were Kang, this would have not been an issue, and it would have been like, oh, we got rid of one, now we're on to a new version of Kang, a different variant. But, obviously, like you said, just recast him and let's move on. Like, it's why sacrifice the very great plot that is ahead of us to just sacrifice it over one little casting thing, so
and there was chatter going forward that there might be multiple actors playing Kang in the future, so I think they kind of learned their lesson.
I think that's a good choice. So
Wonder Man, Byron Bowers will star alongside Yahya Abdul Mateen II in Wonder Man. The role is unknown. Could he be Eric Williams, aka the Grim Reaper? So
it would be awesome if he was Grim Reaper. I think the last time we've had kind of anything teased about him was WandaVision, when he was like kind of
the
hinted
cartoon.
at, and and like a little like it was like a shot where it kind of panned and you saw like it was either his mask or his arm, like the scythe piece that he wears on his arm or whatever. Like, okay, maybe it was both. Yeah. in that. So yeah, looking forward to that, and would be interesting to see what they do with him in Wonder Man. Obviously, they're brothers, but I feel like that project has been kind of laying low. Like we don't really hear that much about it. Like we hear a little something every now and then. But
Comic-Con, I bet they're gonna have something at Comic-Con.
yeah, I hope they do something, because I feel like they need to flush that out. And that guy that's playing Wonder Man is a phenomenal actor. So
Yeah, I
you
agree.
know.
Except for playing Morpheus in the latest. But I don't blame him for that. I blame that film. I did not like.
He played Black Manta though, didn't he?
He played Black Manta in the Aquaman films, but he also played the AI Morpheus in the Resurrection of Matrix Resurrection. So
Well, people hate me for saying this, but I liked Black Manta better than I liked Jason Momoa playing Aquaman. So, like, I thought Black Manta was one of the best castings in that movie, and man, he played that villain so great. So, I was glad we had him for 2 movies, you know. So
yeah, I've long said this, and I've long felt that the actor that played his brother, that should have been Aquaman.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
he has the look,
like
the look, the physique, the way he does it. He carries himself. He was more Aquaman to me than Jason Momoa was. Spider-Man Noir via Daniel RPK. The rumored plot of Spider-Man Noir. We follow Ben Reilly, Nicolas Cage, a private investigator, as he stumbles down a rabbit hole of corruption in 1933 New York City. While also establishing his past as a superhero, Riley investigates the death of Edward Addison, which leads him to discover that the mayor is up to something nefarious that involves crime boss Silver Mane and female fatale Yuri Watanabe. So there you go. Via Deadline, June Lee joins the series. She will play a singer at the premier nightclub in New York. So, Brave New World, via The Wrap, Captain America Brave New World reportedly still depict Ruth Bat Sefa, aka Sabra, as Israeli, despite Marvel Studios changing her origins from the comics to now being an ex-Black Widow. She will play her with an Israeli accent. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you come back for more. Look forward to more conversation with you in the future. So ex-Black Widow, and we saw that in Shang-Chi. There were still some Black Widows out there. We know that there's others out there, so that's gonna be interesting too. That, of course, we're gonna have a Captain America movie with the Black Widow possibly as an ally. That's kind of not new there, but it looks like they're staying with that whole dynamic of that. Spider-Man 4 via Daniel RPK. Sam Raimi is the top choice to direct Spider-Man 4. Via Gizmodo, Kevin Feige says they currently have writers writing Spider-Man 4 and should be delivering a draft relatively soon. Via Cinnamon Bland, Kevin Feige shares that John Watts might not return to direct it. He's got lots of things going on now, so we'll probably be looking for somebody else just because he's busy. So, some X-Men news. Via Gizmodo, Kevin Feige teases what to expect from the X-Men roster. You'll probably see a mix of characters you've never seen before and characters you've seen before. So,
interesting.
We talked about the Deadpool stuff yesterday on that one. I have other news on my phone I got to pull up from today's stuff. That wasn't my notes on here. Blade news via Black Tree TV. Kevin Feige on Blade being rated R. I think, like Deadpool, that's inherent with character of Blade. So there you go. Blade's going to be rated R most likely, which makes sense. Via Blavidity TV, Kevin Feige reveals that a writer is actively working on the script for Blade, and that he's read half of the new draft, which is feeling good so far, which is great news. They're getting things, back on track with this film. He also says that they are committed to making Blade. They're not going to make it until it's right. He says it's been frustrating for us and for some fans that it's taken a while, but we have a writer working on it now. I read half of his draft, and it's feeling good so far. So
that's good. It's definitely been taking a while. What are we, like 5 years in at this point? So,
yeah.
Kang
news via Daniel RPK. Marvel Studios has officially found a replacement for Kang. It's going to be a recast. So they're not getting rid of Kang. They are recasting him. The rumor is the new actor will reveal during SDCC. Now, what if they do the most funniest thing of all time here? And notice that last SDCC, they brought out Mahershala Ali and announced Blade. What if they bring him back out and say, "Guess what? He's changed roles. He's the new king." I didn't expect it to happen, but that'd be wild if they brought him out and he puts the king hat on.
I just feel like that would be salt in the wound at this point,
Yeah.
right? Like it's like, no, we wanted him as Blade, but yeah, I mean, I cannot remember that guy's name, but that dude that played Victor Strand in the Walking Dead universe, that dude who's got the really deep voice.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I hope they go with that dude. He would be so awesome, I feel like, as Kang, because you know, obviously one of the best things I feel like about Kang and just a villain in general is you want a villain that can monologue and talk for a while. And yeah, I feel like that guy, he can definitely kill that. You know, he is I think a solid choice for them on that front.
who was that
But
guy?
obviously,
Go ahead. I'm trying to find.
yeah, obviously, I'm a big proponent of they should definitely choose multiple people to play different variants for Kang.
Especially the council.
Yeah. So if they were to do that, I think we would really benefit in the long run.
Wait 1 second. I'm looking up. I know who you're talking about. I'm just trying to
Coleman
find his
Domingo.
name. Yes, thank you, Coleman Domingo.
You're welcome. I had to look it up myself. I just literally just was like, that's the only thing I know him from. I think is The Walking Dead, but I thought he was one of the best characters in. I think it was Fear the Walking Dead, which is what he appeared in first.
He wasn't the main character. He was like one of the side characters, right?
Yeah, he was like somebody that like the family that was on the run found, I think, at some point, and he was like a rich dude or something that kind of ended up joining their little group and kind of going forward. So awesome guy though, and great voice. He, even if he wasn't Kang, he would be a great voice actor in something animated, I think. So
I agree. Nova news. Via comicbook.com, Kevin Feige confirms that Nova will be a TV series and will release 3 to 4 years. So
interesting.
Avengers Tower. Via comicbook.com, Kevin Feige says we will soon find out who bought Avengers Tower. Kevin Feige revealed the buyer of Avengers Tower was known making Spider-Man Homecoming, and it'll be revealed within a year. This almost sounds like it's going to be Ironheart, because Ironheart is next year, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And what if it's Sacha Baron Cohen's Mephisto who bought the tower?
I hope it's not, but it's like I get it, Mephisto messing in the affairs of mortals, kind of, yeah. But I hope it's not Mephisto. But
I'm trying to think other projects coming out. It could be Val, with Brave New World. It could be Fisk Tower with Born Again. I'm trying to think what other projects that we could see this being. So.
Yeah, I like the idea of Fisk being like, oh, this is going to be where I become the mayor of New York and sit in my new tower, and this is going to be my new office, and look out over the city. So
a couple of things that hit today before, we were supposed to record yesterday, but we had some difficulties, so I have some new notes for today as well. Alpha Flight news. Via the movie podcast, Kevin Feige says there have been discussions about introducing Alpha Flight into the MCU. We have talked about it. We have a lot of fellow Canadian friends at Marvel that discussed that very thing. So that's interesting. Hulk and Wolverine team up. Via Screen Rant, Hugh Jackman would love to see the Wolverine and Hulk team up in Avengers Secret Wars. I'm terrified of how that will feel as an actor. I just get flown around, he says. Some more Deadpool and Wolverine news. Via Screen Rant, Aaron Stanford says he's open to returning as Pyro or playing a new role in a Marvel X-Men movie after Deadpool and Wolverine. Ryan Reynolds reveals they offered Jordan Peele a role in Deadpool and Wolverine, but he couldn't do it as well. Via Collider, Mephisto was considered to be the villain in the early process of Deadpool and Wolverine, says Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy. Seems like Mephisto everywhere. Yeah, that'd been a weird one. Unless he's like, instead of being I guess instead of it being a multiversal film, maybe he made a deal with the devil to save his, something else happens to save his friends and family. So
one of my favorite comics with Mephisto is he makes a deal with like I think it was Deadpool to trick Iron Man into drinking alcohol again. So he goes and tries to get Tony Stark drunk and ends up knocking him out and stealing the Iron Man suit and then drinking alcohol and flying around in it. And Mephisto comes to him and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, you're supposed to get Iron Man drunk." And he's like, "Well, I am Iron Man. I'm wearing the suit and I'm drunk. Like, what are you talking about?" And it's like Mephisto's like, like he's mad at his low level demon that made this deal with Deadpool and everything. And he's just like, "All right, no more. And yeah, funny. So, I mean, I feel like that would not go Mephisto's way ultimately because Deadpool is just such a crazy character.
Yeah, but just think of all the crap he would pull if that was the case in that film.
Mhm.
So, Kevin Feige reveals they're talking to Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman about future MCU projects. There's certainly been a lot of discussions that that was fun, what we should do next. So, Hugh Jackman is not going to be done with this. Like I said, they'll be in Secret Wars. I guarantee Hugh Jackman is going to be in Secret Wars, if anything else. Unless they do like a Hulk Wolverine film or something like that. Or
I saw one of those teasers where, Ryan Reynolds is dressed up like Deadpool and he said Hugh Jackman is going to be playing Wolverine until he's like 90 years old or something like that. So, who knows? Maybe they'll keep him around for at least a few more movies or something.
Yep.
So.
Via E! News, Ryan Reynolds says, once and for all, the cameo thing with Taylor Swift, because she's our friend, that is not in Deadpool and Wolverine. So no Taylor Swift, no Blake Lively, from what he said publicly. So Robert Downey Jr. returned via big screen leaks. Kevin Feige shot down the idea of Robert Downey Jr. returning as Doctor Doom himself behind the scenes. He had no interest in doing that. I'm so glad they're not going that route. Special presentations via Collider. Kevin Feige reveals they are actively developing a new Marvel Studios special presentation at the moment. There will be more. You just have to wait. Now, I wonder if they're going to change it. Remember, they went away from special presentations. They went to Marvel Spotlight. So I wonder if anything one off, because I think like Wonder Man is a Spotlight, for example. I think anything one off, I wonder if that's going to be a Spotlight thing. I wonder if special presentations will only be for explaining stories of like alongside films, right? Like, for example, Fantastic Four comes out, we get a Silver Surfer spotlight about, the Heralds across, or the Heralds of the Galactus spotlight or something like that. Or, Blade comes out, we get a Dracula one or whatever like that is, or a Lilith one, those type of things. I wonder if we'll get things to go like bonus content for films they've already made where they can pull content that they didn't use for the film and put that into a spotlight presentation.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Eternals 2. There are no immediate plans for Eternals 2. Kevin Feige tells Inverse there are, and I think you've seen maybe in a trailer we've released recently an acknowledgement of some of those events. Certain giant things come out of the ocean, basically referencing the Brave New World trailer that we saw with Captain America, Sam Wilson, over the ocean in that fight scene. So I hope, we gotta show that. I gotta show that clip out across the socials, the one that you made about our discussion about what they should do with that, or maybe combine them with the Guardians, because I think they can still use some of those characters. And I want to know what happened with Star Fox. I want to know what happened with the rest of them. The whole Judgment by Arisheim. And I think some of those characters can turn up well in other films. For example, Cersei was an Avenger at one point. So,
and I think it fits so well too for them to be like, hey, the Eternals are looking for Peter Quill because he's part Celestial, right? And then they go to the Guardians, and then they find out that he's not there, and then the Guardians are like, oh, well, we'll help you, and then they all get kind of like in a bad situation, and then it's like, okay, now we really need to go get Peter Quill, like from Earth, kind of type of thing. And I love the idea of that being like a post-credit scene, like them sending a beacon or something out to Earth. Sprite finds it, then goes and gets Peter Quill, and then they leave Earth together or something, So hopefully they would do something like that, but who knows? I'll be listening for that breaking news of Eternal Guardians, know. So
I'll get that clip cut up with the little teasers that we share and get that posted across the socials. So the last bit of news I have is the Coogler vampire film. Director of photography Autumn Gerard Arakpa confirms that the untitled vampire thriller has wrapped filming. One of the best experiences of my career. Thank you as always, Mr. Coogler. Get ready for it. She shared on social media. And guess who else is in that film? I found out recently. Haley Stanfield's in that film as well.
Really?
Yeah. So I wonder what role she's
Interesting.
playing, and we know that Michael B. Jordan is playing twins, I believe, in that film as also. So, yeah, I'm gonna go look at that because I saw like the cast of that. There are a lot of crossovers from Marvel film in that. Let me
You
find
know
that real quick.
who I was incredibly shocked to see in a vampire film. I don't know if you watched Renfield, that movie. I told you I wasn't really a big fan of it, but I watched it and it had Nicolas Cage play
Oh,
Dracula in it,
I know
and
I haven't seen it, but I know what movie it is.
I was so shocked because like I'm not the biggest Nicolas Cage fan. I only think he's done a couple of movies that are pretty decent, but man, was I like, man, he ate that role up. He could play Dracula. Like, I don't know why. I think it's just because he loved being like a big ham playing Dracula, you know. So
could he be Dracula in the MCU instead of Ghost Rider?
that would be awesome if they did that, to be honest. So
Yeah, it looks like the cast is going to be Michael B. Jordan, Delroy Lindo, who is supposed to be in Blade but no longer is attached to it, Jack O'Connor, Jamie Lawson, Wunmi Masaku, Omar Benson Miller, Haley Steinfeld, Lola Kirke, and Kristen Robinson. So we had a couple people that were attached, have been in a Marvel film or attached to Marvel film at some point in that film. And that's all I got for the news. Pretty short and sweet. Any other thoughts before we wrap things up today?
no, I don't think so. Wish that we didn't have to wait another year or two for The Boys season 5, but yeah, I'll be ready for that. You know, wish we were getting season 5 starting next week and we would just go ahead and get that new episode, but you know, we'll get it when we get it, I suppose. So
I can't remember. Did they film 3 and 4 back to back, or 5 or 4 and 5 back to back? I thought they were filming both 2 seasons at the same time.
I'm not sure. I felt like there was a gap of like of a year or two between the like 1 or 2 seasons, but I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
So who knows? I mean, we're over halfway through 2024, so I would assume we would at least get it 2025, maybe even 2026 at this point. I don't even know. Have they started filming for it? Do we know yet?
I don't know. All I know is that it'll be released 2026. So either they're going to be filming here, starting filming the back half of this year, or early 2025 they'll start filming.
Yeah, so if they start filming, I would assume they'd probably finish probably about this time next year, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe later in the year, and then we would probably get it. I don't know, maybe mid 2026, probably, somewhere around there. I hope they do more than 8 episodes this time around. I hope they do at
Give us
least
2
10
parts,
episodes.
16, 2 parts,
Yeah.
16 episodes. Do that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So, you know, we get a little bit more because I will ultimately hate to see that show go once it's all
Yeah.
said and done. So.
Same. I wonder what the crew's going to do next. If they're going to bring up something original or adapt something possibly from, because isn't The Boys attached to Dark Horse Comics?
I think it's Dynamite Comics, if I remember correctly.
For some reason, I thought they were attached to Dark Horse for some reason.
Yeah, so I don't know what that is under. I think it's Dynamite. I would have to verify that, but it's been a long time since I've read The Boys. So, but yeah, so looking forward to that season 5, and we'll see. Yeah, it is Dynamite Entertainment.
Okay.
Yeah, so. But yeah, so looking forward to that. And that's pretty much all I got to say. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to season 2 of Gen V, season 5 of The Boys. We're kind of after, you know, I'm really looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine, but it almost feels like after this movie, Marvel-wise, that we kind of have a letdown after this for a while. We have some shows, which is good, but there's no more other movies this year. I gotta look at is there any DCU movies this year? I don't think we're seeing anything next year.
No, I don't think we're getting anything movie-wise until Superman in 2025.
Okay, so
which isn't even Superman Legacy anymore. It's just Superman, I believe now. So
I might have to go back and reread the Boys comics then. I bought them when that deal was going on, where it was like $25. You get all of them in digital format. So I might go back and just read those in the meantime. Because I haven't read all of them all the way through. I read bits and pieces, so that'd be kind of good. And I'm up on some characters. But yeah, I kind of feel like where they're gonna go. Season 5.
I'm so bad about doing that. Like I'll pick up random like issues and jump all around and read stuff, and then I'm like trying to piece stuff together when I read comics, and then I'm like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. That actually happened before that, and it's like I'm so bad about reading. And I did that with The Boys. I jumped all around and everything, and I don't think I've read it all the way through. I've definitely missed quite a bit of some stuff in there, but I remember like kind of more towards the beginning, a lot less of the middle, and more towards the end on reading stuff. So I feel like I missed some stuff there in the middle. So I definitely probably need to go back and read The Boys all the way through. But the show is just so much different than the comic at this point that, you know, it's not like that's a bad thing. You know, you don't want something to be the same exact thing all over again, because then at that point it's like you're not really surprised by anything.
Yeah,
So
I
it
agree.
keeps you guessing. So it's nice to have things that are fresh, you know. So
All right, well, to wrap things up, everyone enjoy Deadpool Wolverine this week. We will have the Deadpool and Wolverine review with Andy on August 4th. Next Sunday, we're kind of open right now. Depends how much news comes out of Comic-Con. We may do a Comic-Con recap on Sunday. Alex and I will chat during the week about that. In the meantime, if you listen to the podcast, you know, please like and give us reviews. You know, you can follow us on our Facebook page, join our Facebook groups. We are on Kick, Trovo, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. We are also on Instagram and TikTok, where you'll start seeing some clips where I'll post the clip of the conversation about Eternal Guardian. So please help us get back to being able to stream to our Facebook page and follow us on the page, Comics Evolved. And with that being said, we will either talk to you with Comic-Con updates, or we'll see you when we do the Deadpool and Wolverine review with Andy being back. So take it care.
see ya.